more report.
The June 14th edition of the Tiverton Budget Committee will come to order at 6:30. We'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would please take the roll, Ms. Jenny.
Mr. Bento, absent. Mr. Cody? Ms. Durfee? Here. Mr. Mello?
Here.
Mr. Souza?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Present.
Ms. Janik, present. Mrs. Epke?
Here, married. How about that? I got
Miss-
married.
That's what happens over this budget
I've
season.
been since last
You got you married.
Brother, Mr. Bone.
Ms. Cook? Absent. Mrs. Odell?
Here.
And Mrs. Driggs?
Here.
Okay, and we do have a quorum. Obviously, Mr. DeSisto is not joining us. His able assistant, Mr. Squire, is it?
Close enough.
Yeah.
Scores.
Okay. And I just saw the administrator goes by, so I will say again, they're here to answer questions, not to advocate. Our videographer has impressed upon me that I am to impress upon each of the Budget Committee members that you're supposed to speak directly into the microphone and be close. Otherwise, the microphone will not turn on, so you won't have it. So he was quite insistent, and I reckon he's a young man I don't want to get on the wrong side of, since he controls the video of the meeting, probably has very good editing skills, so we don't want to get him cross with us. So speak directly into the microphone, if you would, please. Hopefully, some of you printed the agenda for tonight, which is quite short. The first thing I want to do, before I forget, I want to thank all the members of the committee for all their hard work. And this year, not only did you put a lot of hard work in, but you also had an opportunity to put in some overtime. So I doubly want to express my appreciation. The other point I want to cover quickly is that on the agenda, excuse me, I didn't specifically call out approval of the minutes. We'll handle that under other. I'm not sure that we're really prepared to approve the minutes since the turnaround was very short and we haven't had a lot of time to look at it. From what Mrs. Mello tells me, there is no problem with leaving the minutes unapproved. They will be recorded, they will be kept, and it will be noted that they were taken but not voted as approved. So, but we can deal with those under other. At your place, you found several documents, which I will run through. One was a letter that I received last night from residents at the Senior Citizen Center, telling us that they value the center very much, and we should not cut any of those budget items. There's also a letter, a memo from our administrator about trash removal options, which was dated yesterday. Frankly, I haven't had a chance to read that. You will see a worksheet from Louise Durfee, and there's also a worksheet from Nancy Driggs, and there should be coming around wherever.
Deb Janik has it.
Yep. There's a worksheet from me. I think that covers all the pieces of paper. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, 2, 3, 4. Did everybody get one that way? And Ms. Driggs, when that pile of paper reaches you, would you just put it over on the table so any member of the public that wants it can pick it up? So, we have several different proposals. What I want to do is start just quickly with the piece of paper headed Cat's Budget Remandation Version 2. And that's a summary of what we did last week. And at the bottom right corner of that document, you'll see there was a difference remaining of $151,460 of reductions yet to be made. And first thing I want to do is note that these numbers were all mostly the result of the work of Ms. Driggs. I took her listing, which I sent all the committee members, and put a few more details with it, but she did the work. Now, subsequent to putting this together, I came to the conclusion that we had an error in it, and that the $25,000 allowance for uncollected taxes should not be counted as a reduction. So subsequently, with another piece of paper, I took that out. But that's the version 2 is where we were. Okay, now, it looks like what we have is we have 3, and this is where the committee, we have 3 working documents. We have a document labeled LD 61416 from Ms. Durfee. We have another packet, Budget Committee member Nancy Driggs adjustment proposals. And we have Budget BC working papers, June 14th, which is a 2-sided document. So
I gave you one.
Take this one.
with that, we need to decide what we'll start with. And it looks like Mrs. Driggs is the most lengthy document. So what is the wishes? No, I won't go down that path. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to say that since Ms. Driggs has the lengthiest, we'll start with her worksheet and let her make any comments that she wants to. Then we'll go to Ms. Durfee, and then I'll bat cleanup.
Thank you, Cecil. Basically, the first page, just the purpose of it was just sort of to show the kinds of rationales we were looking at as a way of accomplishing these adjustments to the budget. On the second page, I am asking for reconsideration of 2 items. I voted for both of them. They're obvious. It's the firefighters' overtime, and I put the rationale on the page of why I came back to asking for the $50,000. The rescue new, again, is, my concern is that we not incur more debt until the other truck is paid off this year. And just looking at the debt obligations of our town is 8% of the budget, which is very high compared to other towns. And then the rest is just what I call sort of a menu, a panoply of, none of them are particularly high in number, but I give rationale, but it all adds up, and it adds up, frankly, far in excess of what we actually need to find. So I was hoping that it would engage a talk about priorities on this budget of what might work. The one thing that I want to explain a little bit are the Health and Human Service donations. I'm just leveling them all to 500 for all 6 groups, and again, I give the rationale. The other 3 we give to are substantial groups with substantial assets, and some of them pay 6-figure director. So that, I mean, everybody can read what they are, but definitely they're sort of self-explanatory, and I think it totals as a possible 427, and we only need 176,460 more. So it was a way of picking and choosing some things that gets us to that figure. And I especially would like to make the point that my motivation for this was, rather than taking and excising things like recreation or trash or senior center, I would like to take a scalpel very, very tenderly in places where it would make sense and would do the least harm to the taxpayer. That's my motivation.
Mr. Chair, can I ask how much money are we going for? How much money? Because I see on the sheet that was handed out that last week we found, if you include the reduction in abatements, 631, 435. We did not vote on withdrawing money from the general fund yet, did we?
No. What we need is, after adding that abatement back to Ms. Driggs' work, we need $176,460 to meet the municipal budget voted by the electors on May 21st. 176,460.
Okay.
Now, what I'll do is I'll go to Ms. Durfee, have her make some overall comments, then I'll make some comments on my sheet, and then we can decide how we want to go from there.
Okay. I took a approach of where do we need to be to balance the budget? And so I started with the monies that we have already cut. And I'm looking at my sheet, which is item 1. I added back the abatements. It's the same thing that you did, Cecil. I added back the loss of housing aid, which I checked with the treasurer this afternoon, which is 32.5, and that figure was verified. So that's a loss of revenue that if we don't get, we have to adjust the expenses, as I understand it. Then, not wanting to take money from the general fund for any host of reasons. We have a school bond issue coming up. We have already paid a price of not adding to the reserves or cutting the reserves to the bone. I added that back as saying, if we want to not take monies from the general fund, then we have to find $175,000. My total is $383,960.00. $383,960. My suggestions are that we take it from trash, either 400,000 to cover the 383, or go beyond, take 500,000, and use some of that to restore cuts previously taken last week. And people could probably agree or compromise. We could put money back to the 13 retirees, to the pension plan, and/or the capital. All of those are needs. That was my approach. But I then talked to the treasurer with regard to what happens if we do delete the trash and take that. And I'm going to summarize, but she is here, lucky her, and Denise, there you are. I put questions to her. Denise, if we do that, could we keep everything in place? And I think I used the word enterprise fund. And Denise then stated some facts that I thought were extremely helpful. So perhaps you could tell everybody what you advised me this afternoon.
Okay. Let me just find
And,
my,
and for the record, this is, identify yourself,
oh,
please.
Denise Surratt,
And you
45
are-
South Avenue, Town Treasurer.
Thank you.
I did a little bit of research and modeling after one of our neighboring towns in Middletown. They have an enterprise fund, which they use for trash pickup. The households are charged a user fee annually, plus they also do pay as you throw. And they do the same size bags that we do. However, they charge $1.75 for their small bags and $2 for their larger bags. All of that revenue goes into their enterprise fund to pay for trash. And the residents enjoy curbside pickup just as we do yard waste pickup, Christmas tree collection, the whole 9 yards. So in talking to Louise, we threw around a few different numbers, you know, depending on the number of households and what the fee is. And, you know, those are things that would have to be ironed out. But for instance, Middletown has a fee of $141 per year. They collect 600 and
That $141 a year
$141 annually
for each resident.
for each resident who wants curbside pickup,
Okay.
each household. And then they have to pick up, they have to buy the pay-as-you-throw bags, which, in my opinion, we would want to do the same thing. But the revenue from the pay-as-you-throw wouldn't change, it would go to the landfill fund. So, we had talked, I think, the last time about if you eliminated trash and people had to go out and hire the contractor themselves, was $35 a month. So that's $420 a year. Because, as we figured, they're hauling it to Johnston, so there's your upcharge. And why it would cost so much more, because right now we haul it to Tiverton. Which someday,
Yes.
we won't be hauling it to Tiverton anymore. So if we charged our residents or our households roughly, on the low end, $100 annually, you'd need 6,600 residents to participate. And then you could adjust the fee based on the number of residents who choose to participate. If you don't choose to participate, you buy the pay-as-you-throw bags and you drive your trash to the landfill. But that would, it's an alternative, and, you know, based on looking at the neighboring communities, which we are oftentimes compared to, Portsmouth, Middletown, Little Compton, all those, and Westport, those folks all pay outside of their real estate taxes for trash.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If we don't know how many people are going to participate, how can we really even estimate amount it's going to be for each one?
Well, there has to be some research done. But you would, I mean, $100 to $150 is far cheaper than if the resident had to go out and
Right.
hire the contractor
But
themselves.
you don't think it would go up to 2 or 250? I mean,
It wouldn't need to if we can keep it at, the 645,000 right now. If you charged your residents, I have it here somewhere. I'll tell you right now. If we charged $140, we would need 4,500 residents to sign up, households. And we have 6,700 households in town, roughly.
That's what,
So, I mean, on the upside, if every single household, say 6,500 households, it would be $100.
and this is the full trash,
This is
the full trash
everything
line.
we have now. We would just be removing the 645,000 from the general fund, and we would set up an enterprise fund. Just think about it like wastewater,
Yep.
where everybody is charged for what they use.
Right.
And then we collect the funds in this special revenue fund, and then we pay the bill out of this special revenue fund. So I just did a little research in terms of what Middletown is doing. And they put all of their money into the fund. They put the pay-as-you-throw bags and that kind of thing, because they don't have a landfill.
Right. How much extra would it cost to administer, I'm thinking of
Administering this?
Ms. Durfee's notion of leveraging the collection and fee structure that's already in place on the bags versus setting up an enterprise fund and sending out the administrative overhead of sending out the bills and collecting the money.
In my opinion,
Yeah,
Portsmouth and Middletown are very successful in how they do it. It's an annual fee. You fill out a paper, you go to the town hall, you get your sticker. It's once a year. Middletown even offers ACH. If someone can't pay the whole 150 or the 141, they can do like a 6-month ACH payment program. So they do make some allowances for folks if they don't have the money up front. As far as administrating this, if you're collecting a fee, and there is a deadline, like you have to get your sticker by a certain time to participate in the program. So you're billing people once a year, and then as folks move in, they have to come to the town hall and get a sticker. It's not unusual. We would just be paying the regular Patriot bill once a month, so that part of the administrative work is no different than we're doing now.
right.
So the only thing you're adding on is billing and collecting
Right.
the fee, which we would have to figure out how we'll do that here at the clerk's office, or here at the town hall. People could mail it in, people could drop it off, just like they make a tax payment.
So you don't envision there being an extra 1 or 2 or 3 or 5,000 of cost associated with
Well,
collecting?
what I did note when researching this is all of their materials and supplies, et cetera, they pay out of the enterprise fund.
Ah, okay.
So there is enough money there. And that was the same way with wastewater. Wastewater paid for the maintenance on the pumps, it paid for John Lincourt's salary, it paid for all of those
Right.
associated costs. So it's completely removed from the general fund. So you just take that right off the bottom line.
Now,
Mr.
if
Chairman?
I-
And remove it completely from the expense budget.
Right, yes. So
And then
I
no
have,
li-
excuse me, I have one question. The revenue from the pay-as-you-throw bag would still go into the reserve
yes.
fund to close the close the landfill. And
The question I have, I guess, I think we're getting really into the weeds on trash, which is a big issue, and before we make decisions based on trash, I would like to consider either other things on my list or on your list that are not such a huge amount. And I guess my question, I look at what it sounds like Louise Durfee's coming up with is that reductions over $1 million. And it just strikes me as a little strange when everybody was fighting about even having to find reductions of the amount we were looking for, that you would be willing to to do more cuts in order to save the taxpayer money that's in the general fund. So I would like to move on and discuss other things before we come back to trash.
And we will do that. And let me
Well,
note
I would
that-
suggest you put it in a
Okay.
motion as to, at
No,
some
no,
particular point.
We're going to stick to the plan. Thank you, Mrs. Surratt.
You're welcome.
I'm going to, now, so far, the only person that has an opinion on the committee about Ms. Durfee's plan is Ms. Durfee, important as that is. Okay, now it's my turn. I'm going to go through mine very quickly, and I'm working with a sheet of paper. It's printed on both sides. I want to start with the side, Budget Committee Working Papers, June 14th, expenses. Started out with the 151,460, added back the abatements, and that gave me a new total of $176,476. I then subtracted the savings from not having a new clerk in the Lost Enforcement Office, which that estimated fringe benefits was over $21,000, and I got that from Madam Treasurer. Now, that's a high number because she, in her estimation, she used the family plan medical or insurance, which, and by itself was over $1,500, $15,000, excuse me. So that said, we really needed to go after $154,592. Then what I tried to do was take comments from the last meeting and try to bring things together. There was concern expressed, and again, to what level, I just made a subjective judgment. I added back the capital project for $65,000 for the catch basin cleaner. A lot of folks last week were concerned about the cuts we made on paving, so I just unilaterally picked a number of $50,000 to add back. There is concern about the contribution to the police pension. So again, I just made a subjective judgment to add back $50,000 there. So when I start with the 154, 5, et cetera, add my add backs, which are totally subjective, I come up with $319,592. Then I went to the only part of the budget that was big enough to address that kind of money, which is the trash collection and recycling of $644,697. So when I subtracted the 319, et cetera, that left a balance in the trash collection of $325,105. If you take 644,697 and divide it by 52, you get a weekly cost, and I know I'm playing a little loose, but you get a weekly cost of $12,398, and if I take the new revised budget of 325, et cetera, and divide it by that 12,398, I end up with 26 weeks of trash collection, every other week, in essence. So that was one, and again, the only person that thinks this has merit is me. Nobody else is endorsed or unendorsed. Now, if you turn it over, I worked the revenue side. And again, thinking about the May 21 vote at $175,000 that was talked about in Mr. Katz's statement. I added back the cost of the bond refinance. Now, I used $32,000 even. I may be off $500 there. I subtracted the abatement, $25,000 that we did, came up with a total of $182,000 even. That should probably be $182,500. Then I labeled that fiscal year 16-17 trash collection surcharge. That should really be fiscal year 16-17 revenue surcharge, because it doesn't necessarily have to go to trash. Then I just gave one possible method of raising that $182,000. And again, I recalled that last week we talked about different methods that towns had in the surrounding area. So I used the number of 6,000 households. I consulted a little bit with Mr. Robert, and there's more than that, but to be conservative, I just said 6,000. So I divided the 182 by 6,000, got $30 per year per household. I guessed that the average household uses about 48 bags, so that per bag would be 64 cents. Nothing magic about this method. It's one way to address it, but as we've heard from Mrs. Surratt, there are more than one way to do that. I was also building in the fact that last time our administrator said that if we want to do something with trash, we need to give him some guidance. Then he would take it from there and talk to the contractor. So that's what I've attempted to do. So that summarizes what I throw out. So now, do we want to, which approach would we like to do? Do we want to try, would we like to look at many different line items, which Ms. Driggs has delineated very well for us, thank you. So I would need a motion so we can decide, and I would ask for the motion either to be Ms. Driggs, well, let's make it general in terms of a more detailed evaluation, or more general. Ms. Odell.
Before we go into that, I have a suggestion that maybe we revisit some of the things from last week first, and if we change our minds on some of the things, then we'd know how much we're going after.
I think we can do that. We can make a motion and do that. I think in my case, I raised some of those. Ms. Driggs also raised some of them, but we can certainly, if you want to make a motion, we can raise the ones that you're interested in.
I make a motion that we review some of the decisions that were made last week, specifically probably the ones that are on these lists, and go on from there so we have a total.
I second that. I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
To review the items that, on these three lists?
I think what she's referring to is the CAT's budget.
Revisit the items that we
vision
approved on these three lists.
Version 2, I think, is what she's referring.
Yeah, in other words.
Well, no, we didn't necessarily, we didn't approve all of them.
Yes, we did.
So which list? You're looking at this list, Cecil.
Catch basin and police.
Oh, I'm sorry, his list, yes,
Yeah.
on mine, sorry.
On Cecil's list or this
These are all,
list?
these are all, we approved all of these.
Which list are you
I have two
referencing?
on my list.
She has 2 on hers, he has 3 on his.
You know,
Yeah, but on
before we
this
do it,
list is everything, on the CATs.
I
Okay?
think we should decide on where we are and what we need to raise before we get into whether or not if we take out X from trash or whatever. Nancy, I don't think your list is going to really carry the day here, I'll be honest with you. So I think we're at a point where we should say, okay, I can see one change on my list from the the subtraction of the benefits for the code enforcer. But I think we should at least agree on what we need, if we don't take out of the general fund. And then operate from there. What do we need and what can we add? Do we add back the police pension or a portion thereof or the 13 retirees?
Can I just,
Okay, so to answer the question, the bare minimum that we need to meet the voted municipal budget after adjustments is $154,592, period. Now,
Yeah.
Mr. Souza.
Well, Cecil, that's not really correct, because we have to add back your 175.
We will do that.
32, 20, 25, that gets to 182.
Right, we'll do that on the revenue side.
I
Right
would-
now, I'm working on the
Expenses.
expense side.
Can I
Mr. Sou-
interject
no,
for just a minute?
no,
Because we have to-
No, excuse me. Mr. Souza has the floor. Mr. Souza.
I would like to propose that we do everything we can to avoid taking any money out of the town treasury. That $175,000 or whatever that money is, I would rather do cuts and leave that money alone. We've played with that money before. It's caused us issues. Leave it there where it belongs and deal on the expenditure side and cut $175,000 more out of the expenditure side or find revenue somewhere else. But I want to leave that $175,000 alone.
Okay.
Can I make it-
Ms. Epke.
I think Mr. Souza just made my point, because if we don't withdraw money out of the general fund, that 175,000, we have to reduce the expenses by 175,000 because we can't raise the levy.
Yeah, I understand that. That's correct.
Right.
I'm sorry, ma'am, we're not taking
And
public
I-
comment.
Then, if we can't ask questions, then why can Mr. Karen keep passing Mrs. Driggs notes during this meeting? Thank you.
I would,
Excuse me, let me answer the question. The question is, passing a note is different than making a public comment.
But he's still advised, he's
Please, ma'am, please. Thank you. Ms. Driggs.
Chairman, I remember last week that we asked the attorney that to give us guidance on what the ballot question was, and that it was very specific that we shall appropriate the 19
Yeah, the 19 whatever.
and
million. Yep.
levy a tax not to exceed.
Yep,
So
that's
I
correct.
think that gets us back to 154,592. And I
Correct.
guess, do you agree with that?
So I guess as a preliminary point, I didn't notice any note passing, but that shouldn't be happening to members
Okay.
or among members. But I'm not saying it to be clapped for. I'm just saying, the Open Meetings Act, it's not appropriate in the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, so noted, and we'll enforce that. So now, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion
Wait,
about the motion?
what's the motion?
The motion is from Mrs. Odell to go over what's labeled as the CAT's budget remand version 2 to see if there's any specific cuts that we made last week that we want to revisit those and retract them. That's the motion that's on the floor. Mr. Souza.
How many hours did we spend last week doing that?
It's a-
We're going to start it all over again?
That's-
Come on.
you
We
can-
voted it last week. let it be, and start from there. I don't feel like reinventing the wheel and revisiting all of those numbers.
Okay, so, any other discussion? Hearing none?
I need to ask a question before we vote.
Okay,
Does a no vote mean that we shall not consider for the rest of the meeting any of these line items?
no.
Okay.
All a no vote means that we're not going to take this piece of paper and go through item by item
Okay.
and reconsider it. That's all that means.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. And follow up from Laura's statement that if we do not take money from the general fund, we have to find it on the expense side. That was your point?
Yes.
That was my point when I circulated this.
Okay.
Okay?
Well,
I added.
Excuse me, but what
No, I
you're
just
saying
wanna-
now
I just
has
wanna-
nothing to do with the motion. I'm going to call the vote on Mrs. Odell's motion.
I'd like to
All
hear
in
Mrs.
favor-
Durfee
No.
continue.
No, excuse me. We
I
have
know you're the chair. I'd like to hear your continue.
we have a motion and a second, and we've discussed. All in favor of Mrs. Odell's motion, please indicate.
This is to reconsider the cats?
Yes. We have two. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The motion fails.
I would like to make a motion that we reconsider the two items on my list that, the first being the firefighters' overtime.
Right. I thought we were not reconsidering at this point.
We'll get to your.
Okay, Mrs. Driggs, you're referring to the document headed Budget Committee Member Nancy Driggs Adjustment Proposals. Which page?
The first page, items to be reconsidered, there are two. Firefighters' overtime, 50,000 would be the downward adjustment, and the rescue one new, 61,350.
So,
When you say the first page, you really mean
The second.
the second page?
The second page.
Yeah. Okay, is there a second for that motion? I see no second for that motion, so the motion fails. Anybody else? Now, Ms. Durfee, excuse me, would you like to make a motion to incorporate looking at,
Well, to move this along, let me just preface before I do that I think your totals and my totals are not too far off. Cecil, I did not get to what we might add back if our motion was to take 500,000 from trash. Under my figures, if we take $400,000 from trash, it just about covers the expense of not taking the 175 from the general fund, plus the items that we've all agreed to and identified. So far, we're...
Yes, and I would agree that your approach and my approach, although slightly different, are in the
Yes.
same vein.
Yes.
And should get us to the same place.
Right. My motion, I think, if we want to consider some restoration of some of the cuts, and mindful of what the Denise Surratt has advised us, I'll make a motion that we take 500,000 from trash. And then, if that motion passed, then discuss how we would perhaps restore cuts.
Didn't we just vote not to revisit the cuts on the cats or my reconsideration?
We did.
We
But that
did.
doesn't preclude another motion in a slightly different form down the aisle.
that's why I asked that question.
Could I move the before,
Well, I mean, Ms. Durfee has the motion, or the floor at the
I didn't
moment.
think it was
Let
a
her
motion.
finish.
Well, to get this on the, I'll make a motion that 500,000 be taken from the trash account.
I'll second.
Discussion. Now, under discussion, I have a question. Is the 500,000 just an abstract number, or?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But this is why, in talking to Denise Surratt and setting up, she thought she could do that quickly. The 500,000 would leave 144,000 in the trash account, which should be enough to fashion a enterprise fund or a special account. I'm using an accounting term that I'm not, special revenue fund. And she said she could do it, she thought, within that time frame of a couple of months.
Is it open for discussion?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. The first is, as I understand my charge on the remand, we're supposed to be adjusting line items to match the ballot that was voted upon.
Right, which we're doing.
And when we start talking about creating a whole new system for trash, I think, in my mind, that becomes a huge policy decision that I think is more appropriately made by the town council than the budget committee as a way of looking at money. And then my last comment, I will keep saying, that everybody was yelling and screaming about having to make any reductions in services, and to make a huge reduction in services in order to keep money. I disagree with Mr. Souza intensely. That money that is over what is needed in the general fund is taxpayer money that was paid in. It should come back to the taxpayer.
Mr. Souza.
Just because I recommended that doesn't mean I want it. I didn't want this whole damn process. All right? So something has got to give. It's a way of getting there. It doesn't mean that I like it. It means that I see it as a way to get there. Let's make that perfectly clear.
And I would also like to say, obviously, if we do this, and we would recommend to the council that a special or special revenue account be established. We are not that body. We don't have staff reporting to us. And I will say one more thing to you, Mrs. Driggs. On May 29th, I read a column by Mr. Katz saying that he was not in favor of the services provided this town.
Okay.
And
that's not relevant.
I'm going to rule that out of order. We're
Fine.
not here to discuss Mr. Anybody. We're here to discuss the budget. Thank you very much. Any other comment about the motion to take 500,000 out of the trash and recycling collection budget?
Yes.
Ms. Epke?
I think my preference would have been to have a vote on withdrawing the money from the general fund first, because the operating assumption here is that we have to decrease the expenses in order to make up for not taking the $175,000 out of the general fund, which...
If it would accommodate folks, I will withdraw my motion if I could defer to that, if it make it more orderly.
Well, I would disagree that it would make it more orderly. I want to work on the expense side.
Okay.
We'll take care of the revenue side later. Excuse me.
Wait a minute.
My only-
Why?
Because I think it flows much more easily, and secondarily is because I'm a little bit of a geek, and I think in terms of expenses and revenues. I have no defense for that. It just is.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
In order to know
trained.
how much expenditures we got to cut, we need to know what we've got on the other side. If we eliminate that 175,000 in revenue, we've got to make that much in cuts. I think we'd like to know that before we go on and make more cuts, or fewer cuts.
That is
That's me.
precisely the point I was trying to make,
Or-
Mr. Chair, or I can finish.
Or we have to raise 182,500 in income. We can go either way. We don't necessarily have to take the 175. We have a whole revenue list in our pink book. The town council last night started to work on a revision of fees, fines, etc. So, who knows?
Mr.
We've
Chairman,
gotta-
I don't know if this is, I don't know procedure
Well-
necessarily, but is it possible for me, as part of my discussion, to indicate that it would still be my preference to consider the items that are, some of the items on my sheet, you take your pick, rather than immediately going to this trash question?
Because we've already voted your motion down.
That was for reconsideration of my
Yeah, but
votes.
we voted it down, and we have a motion on the floor on the expense side to, in the abstract, with no detailed documentation, to just cut the trash budget by 500,000.
It's not quite right, because we would need to take, under my calculation, at least 400,000.
Okay.
And so to cover the loss of, the reduction in expense from the loss of revenue, as well as the cuts we've taken. I make a motion of 500,000, because to use that to think about restoring some of the cuts we made. That's as arbitrary, yes, it may be arbitrary, but that is my thinking.
Okay. Any other comments as to the motion?
I guess my only final comment is, we don't know whether, we've already voted not to reconsider anything, so as of now, it would seem that what Louise Durfee motion entails is over $1 million worth of reductions.
This is
No,
where I would
no,
look.
But,
No,
May I
no.
finish my comments,
No.
Mr. Chair?
No, you may not. You're out of order.
I never
We're
got
trying to
to
move
finish.
things along. I want to respond to Ms. Driggs. Ms. Driggs keeps talking about $1 million. The motion we're voting on is a very simple one. Ms. Durfee, in the abstract, is saying she wants to modify the budget by reducing the trash and recycling collection by 500,000. After we decide that, she's then going to have to, we are all going to have to come up with how are we going to redistribute that 500,000. Would you agree, Ms. Durfee?
I would agree so far.
Yes.
But
So
it's-
you've got to redistribute.
Just so I understand what you're saying, it's, right now, we have 176,000 more we have to find. So even by reorganizing the budget at this moment to take 400 out of rubbish, we're 300 over what we need to have.
But
You're wrong on
I'm,
your
I'm,
figures.
I'm presuming that Ms. Durfee plans to make motions to do something similar like I did, probably different. But in my case, I put back the catch basin cleaner, paving, et cetera. So that's how she's going to address that, I'm thinking. I shouldn't put words in her mouth. Any further discussion about the specific motion? Alex, do you look like you're set? Josh?
Could I just,
Ms. O'Dell?
the only thing that I'm saying is where it's a certain amount, okay, 500,000. Like you have 3 different things here, catch basin, paving, and police pension. If it's only 100,000 over, then we can't even do all of that. So we can't even, say yes to some of the things if they're not enough. That's why I think it's backwards. I don't know.
Then vote no on the motion. I have every confidence that Ms. Durfee is going to come up with a list of things that will take care of the money, but that's a subjective statement on my part.
Can I finish my comments yet?
Yes, now you may have the floor, Ms. Epke.
Thank you. I am in favor of taking 500,000 out because I do think out of the trash. My assumption is that it's not an assumption. It will go to the council, and the council will work with the treasurer, work with the administrator, work with the contractor to come up with the best way to accomplish this task. So it's not the budget committee that is setting the policy. We are giving them a line item that is lower by 500,000 and directing the council to form whatever working group, work with whomever they deem necessary, or find something to offset that $500,000. Because keep in mind that the council has final authority over the line items in the budget. They can move things around as they see fit. So I see this as a recommendation from the Budget Committee to not toy with the revenue, not withdraw monies from the general fund, and cut the line item for the trash by $500,000, and leave it in the council's hand and within their power to leverage whatever expertise they need to help it to happen.
If I may comment, the council has a lot of power. We still have to come back to the, and I'm going to pause for a moment so I get the right number. Bear with me. According to Mr. DeSisto, we have to come back to, if I can find it, a municipal operating and capital expense budget of $19,065,194. So that's what we have to do. Now, exactly how Ms. Durfee is thinking about that 500,000 shuffle, I won't speculate. We'll just see. But the issue at hand, I've checked with Mr. Mello. Ms. Jenke, do you have any
No, I agree with Louise, and I think
And you're ready for the vote?
I am ready for the vote.
Okay. All in favor of Ms. Durfee's motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now that, excuse me, Mr. Souza, you're not part of the meeting.
I'm making a list.
Okay, you're not part of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Who voted against?
Now, the question becomes, by pulling that 500,000 out, that hasn't, we're still in the abstract. What do you want to do with that 500,000? Do you want to cover you've got to come up with specific line items.
Well, yes, I mean, we have to cover the cuts that we have already made. And in my total, it came to, as you look at it, $383,960,000. However, Mr. Cecil had, where's yours, Cecil? The benefits adjustment for the code enforcer, which would be,
Those, the S.
At
S-
21,868.
Louise, you want that?
thank you.
Can, may I ask a question of the attorney?
Certainly.
I have a question for you, sir.
Okay.
For me?
Yep.
Okay.
On the ballot,
Yes.
the people voted for an appropriation for municipal operating and operations and expenses of,
21,868.
Please speak into the microphone directly. Thank you.
the people approved an appropriation for municipal operations and expenses of X.
So the way the budget proposal reads, it's drafted in a manner that, you could come to two different conclusions, but essentially, the key point is that it's a tax levy not to exceed 36610,773. And the two breakouts are the 29.6 for the schools, 19.065 million for the municipal operations. So essentially, your duty is to make cuts that would make it so that the tax levy did not exceed 36.6 million. taking into account that 29.6 of that is going to have to go to schools.
And also, my question gets to the appropriation for municipal operations of 19.0 million. Does that number have to be spot on, or can it be less than that?
According to Mr. DeSisto, after intensive questioning last week, several times, he gave the answer, yes, 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 yes.
Spot
And
on.
he quoted it, 19,065,194. Despite several attempts to get him off that, that's where he was, and that's what it is.
So,
Yes,
All right.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect, I mean, if you'd like to ask the lawyer that, my point is this, that if that number is set in stone, and the levy number is set in stone, we might as well walk out the door because we cannot meet either one.
That's not true.
Unless we don't adjust the revenue at all.
Correct.
That's right. We can address the revenue in
So
a
that we
couple
can't-
different ways.
No, I'm saying so we.
Yes, yes, yes. We can take money out of the reserve, and we can also, we have the authority to adjust the revenue line items, just like we can adjust the expense line items.
I believe the remand,
The remand language says, comes back to the Budget Committee, we establish line items, and it refers to both expense and revenue.
So the dollar amount appropriated has to be exactly the figure that was voted on.
That's what Tony DeSisto told me over and over last week.
essentially, you have the numbers that are voted on. But other than that, you have the final say over everything else that's in the budget. As long as the numbers are met that were voted on.
So as long as the levy is less than the number that was voted on, and as long as the appropriations are exactly what was voted on.
yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
That was the answer last week, that's the answer this week.
The answer next week when we meet.
And we're not going to meet next week. We're going to be, we may be here till midnight, but we're not going to meet next week because Mrs. Surratt needs answers. We have a clock that's ticking, and she has to turn in a budget to the State Division of Municipal Finance. So, at this point, I need some clarification from Ms. Durfee of what we're,
Can I ask
how
one
we're gonna do
question,
it.
Chairman, quick, just before we move on, in terms of your statement? The remand is specific about determining docket line items in accordance with said petition originator's budget proposal. And you're saying that that budget isn't just expense?
That's right.
Okay.
The budget is two-part. It has expense and revenue. If you look at the pink sheet, not the pink sheet, if you look at the book,
No, I know it has both.
It's
It's just,
both.
I didn't know,
so that's my interpretation. You can't have one. I think Matt would have considerable angst if all we gave him was a book with the expense side and no revenue. I would anticipate a rather rapid search for alternate employment if that happened. I'm being facetious. So now, Ms. Durfee,
Okay,
we've now reduced that line item by 500,000.
yes.
How
However,
are we going to move things around a little bit?
all right, we need, under at least this calculation, and I just made a very quick adjustment of the loss of, deduction for the loss of benefits. But what we need, using your figures, Nancy, along with the adjustments for the abatement, Cecil, the loss of the housing aid, plus the figure of 175 as a deduction from the expense, because we're not getting it from the general fund, my figures come to $362,092. I stand corrected, but that's, okay. That's what we need, in addition to the cuts that we already made, to come up with the figure.
That's both sides, expense and revenue?
That is, no, I just take the expense.
Okay.
Okay. How they get, okay, and then, so that being the case, over and above the 631, 435, we needed the additional 362,092, maybe a little high. However, that deducted from 500,000 leaves 362,092. For God's sakes, make sure I'm doing this right. 137,908. That's what you got, Josh? That would
say
be
that?
available.
You lost me totally. Let's
All right.
start from, if you would start from the top, please.
Okay.
We've just taken 500,000 out of
Right.
trash.
Of that 500,000, let me state it, we need to meet the expense item for the budget, 362,092.
And that's where you lose me.
That's instead of the 383,960, correct?
Yes,
Because to hit the expense side, we need 154,592. I don't see
151 for,
154,592.
well, I used the difference remaining, plus we needed the abatements, we had to
Yep.
adjust that, plus the loss of housing aid, 32.5.
Okay, now the loss of housing aid is over on the revenue side.
That is right.
Okay,
That is on the revenue side.
Okay.
But we have no way of making that up, so I took it as a deduction
okay,
from the expense. And the same thing on the 175,000.
okay.
This is my schedule, so we started out. That
Okay,
totals,
Now, just bear with me. I just screwed up the calculator.
It's a Portuguese calculator, be careful.
Mr. Souza.
Louise, can I ask, what did you mean when you said we can't make it up on, we
Okay.
can't show it on the revenue side?
Okay, so,
Meaning what?
On the
Meaning-
expense side.
If we don't take it out of the general fund, when Justin put his,
No, just the figure you just talked about, the housing aid.
housing aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to get the housing aid because the cost, the savings,
No, I understand that, but you made some statement about we can't show it on the revenue side.
well, if there's no housing aid, it's a deduction from the housing aid, so we're not going to increase the housing aid
No.
by some fashion. So I took it as an offset to the expense.
okay, so I started with the 500,000, I took the 154,592, I subtracted the 32,500, and I'm now at 312,908.
I hate to jump in the middle of this, but I would like to make a motion to vote on the less enforcement fringe, because we all seem to be including that in our calculations.
We are.
So perhaps it would be a good thing to vote on that and itemize where it's coming out of, so that that job is done.
We can do that. Right now, I'm much more concerned about making sure everybody follows where Ms. Durfee's going. What is?
Okay, I started out with Nancy's, your schedule. What
Okay.
we need, 151,460.
Okay.
Okay,
Then you added back the
Abatements.
25,000. Yep,
yep. I added back the loss of housing aid, 32.5.
okay, now,
And then I also took the 175, and it totals 383,960,000.
okay,
The 21,868 I had not, in my typewritten calculation, had not included that. That would be a deduction.
Yep,
So I took that as a deduction to 362,092.
okay. I follow where you went. That ain't the way I would do it, but I follow where you went.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, to Ms. Epke, we will pick up, I'm going to look to Ms. Surratt and see, do you still stick with your, and I want to emphasize, this is an estimate. It's not an exact number because we don't know, whether it was a family plan or single. But are you still comfortable with $21,868, which is what you gave me earlier today?
Get my correction?
No. The last thing I saw was before noon today.
Perhaps, Mrs. Surratt, if you could come up to, because we have to vote on the line items.
And you're referring to the benefits for the full-time salary?
For the elimination of the clerk in the enforcement office.
Okay, so that, you want Social Security all in, right?
Yep. Yep. Well, wait a minute, no, because Social Security is a separate
Yeah.
line item. So,
Well, we have to vote on each of the line items, so
yes, I understand that. That's what we're trying to do.
If you eliminated a full-time person and they were participating in the family benefits, that number is $17,030.
Now, that 17,000 is totals, including Social Security.
No, I just
Okay.
said that's the health
So that would be
benefits.
the health insurance.
I'm just want to get up to that line item and type it in. 17,030.
17,030. 030.
So, if we reduce that health insurance by 17,030, we have already reduced that line item by 131,350. So that adjusted total after last week for health insurance is 2,161,161. So I will make a motion to reduce health insurance from 2,161,161 by 17,030,
030.
17030, which equals $2,144,131. Would someone like to make sure that I got my numbers right?
Just say, what was the number you were taking it off of, the first number?
2,161,161.
Matt.
$2,161,161 is the adjusted number I have after we took out the 131,350 last week. So if you look at Kat's Budget Recommendations Version 2, we don't have that on here. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Page 9.
Yeah.
Budget Committee, in the first column of numbers, the Budget Committee recommendation going into the FTR was $2,292,511. We took out $131,350 last week, which comes to a bottom line of $2,161,161, less $17,030 equals $2,144,131.
Yep.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
So,
Now,
do we have a second to that motion?
Madeline did.
Madeline, okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
So this is amending the health line item.
Correct.
Yes.
Unanimous. Now, from Mrs. Surratt, we need Social Security.
2450.
and that is on page 10.
Minus 2450. Then I'll make a motion to reduce the Social Security line item from $510,050, $510,050, by $2,450, for a total of $507,600, $507,600.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay. So now, if you would be so good, Mrs. Surratt, to tell me that instead of the 21,868, what is your total now?
Do you want to reduce the retirement?
Yes, we've got to do that also. Which,
That would be 3,600.
AFSMI,
Yes. MERS.
3,600? All right, I'll make a motion to reduce, excuse me, the town's contribution to the MERS pension plan for AFSMI, account number 22205266, by $3,600, which comes to a total of $106,400.
What's the new total? Sorry.
106,400.
The MERS number.
And it's the AFSMI MERS line.
Second that motion.
Okay. Now,
we obviously are having a conference about which account comes out of which.
Is that the right account?
No, we're fine.
Okay.
That's the right account?
Municipal MERS, right?
AFSMI.
ASME MERS of 305,000 minus,
No. Well,
No,
110,000.
I'm looking at the AFSMI
excuse me,
RI MERS
100
plan.
110,000, I was
Right.
on the wrong one. Minus,
Minus 3,600 leaves 106,400. Should it be the municipal MERS line?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's a different account. It's the AFSMI MERS line.
That's what I thought.
AFSMI is
Yeah.
MERS, yeah.
yep.
As long as it's not fire.
Well, that's what my point was, yeah.
Oh, it's 5266.
Yes.
Municipal is the department heads.
Right, exactly. That's why I said AFSMI.
Okay. So, any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, unanimous.
So that total is 23,080?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then if I may, if you take all of those plus the previous, if you take that additional amount that we just voted on, plus the 151,460, no, I'm sorry, the 631, no, we have to take out the abatements.
Okay, can we say, if we start with the 150, start with my expense working paper, 151,460, minus the 25,
minus 32.5,
okay,
minus 175,
oh, now, Ms. Durfee, don't get, my fingers are slow. The calculator speaks a different
That's a
language.
slow calculator.
Okay, minus the 32, 500. Okay. Minus the 23,080. That didn't take me anywhere where I wanted to go. Okay. That did not work. That's because I should have added. Okay.
Those are savings.
151,460 minus 25 is 126,460. Minus 32,500. Adding 32,500. We're adding 32,500.
Yeah.
Mikey, dikey, Mikeys.
Yeah. That's where I keep going the wrong way.
All right, so 151,460 plus 25,000 is 176,460.
Yep.
Plus 32,500. Come back up here, up there, right there,
Good Lord.
is 208,960
208,960, right.
plus the 23,080.
Now, wouldn't we be less the 23,800?
Yes, be
Yes,
less.
we would be less that.
And that's where the little calculator fails me.
360,880.
Plus M10
I don't think it's going to do it.
is 185,880.
I agree, 185,880.
Okay, we got that far.
Yep.
All right, now what are we doing next? Adding in the 175?
Yes.
$360,880.
That's what I have,
Yep.
is the figure that we need to complete the expense side of the budget. If you take 360,880 and subtract it from 500, that's the money we have to restore cuts, if that's the so desire of the committee.
That would be 139,120.
You're absolutely right. 130,
139, 120.
yep.
But the problem with that, if we keep the cuts the way they are right now, the reduced expenses, we have reduced expenses by $1,129,515.
That is right.
So if we add back 139,120, we do not arrive at the legal decision number of,
Wait a minute, we don't add back.
this is the issue. If we have to meet exactly the expense appropriation of $19,065,194,
Yep.
that means municipal expenses has to equal $19,065,194, not a penny more, not a penny less.
Right, so
Correct.
what is it in your calculations?
Correct.
So if we have now reduced it, right now, if I take
Add back in 100.
what it was,
In expenses, right?
which was 19,848,089, which is what we recommended,
Add that back in.
and I add in or subtract out, however you want to think about it.
You subtract out.
If I reflect those decreases of 1.129 million, we are at an appropriation of $18,718,574.
Okay, so how much over are we?
Which means that we are under
Under, excuse me. Over reduced,
by $346,620.
$346,000.
$46,620.
Okay. So now, we can take that, for example,
So we could, as you're saying, for example, we could add back some to police
We can
pensions, we
add
could
back-
add back this, we could
we
add
can
back that.
catch basin,
Laura,
paving, police pension.
Can you take us through that, because I'm not sure I understand what you did.
Well, and I'm not so confident that we can just add that, because I think we need to deal with the revenue side, because,
Well,
I'm a little concerned.
we-
Here's what I did to get
we
there,
got
Jerry.
we got,
Here's what I did to get there.
go ahead.
If you look at the bottom line expenses from what we recommended at the FTR, was 19,848,089.
19,
19,848,089.
okay.
Minus,
If you sum up all of the reductions we took the other night, plus 500,000 out of trash,
Ah.
plus the 23,080 that we just did,
Yep.
that total is 1,129,515.
Okay.
So if you take the amount that we originally came up with, 19,848,089, and reduce it by the 1.129 million, you arrive at a number of 18,718,574.
Okay.
Which is 346,620
Dollars under
under the mandated budget.
not the mandated appropriation of 19,065,194.
The budget.
So the other,
So we've got to add two line items to total $346,620, which brings us right back to where Ms. Driggs was. We cut too much, not a million too much, but 346. Now, again, coming back to where Ms. Driggs was, do we want to, and Ms. Odell, actually, now do we want to reconsider any of those previous cuts? Which we have to do that to
get up
get,
to the 19.
to get up to the 19,
Oh, 09, whatever it is.
whatever it is. So now,
Okay, can I ask a question?
you may.
We are all in agreement with Laura's 18,718,574, so we know we're going from a number we all agree with?
I'm, as best
Is
I
that
can.
comfortable for everybody? Is that
As best I can, I'm
would-
looking at her spreadsheet, and it looks good, but
I'd be very happy for someone to double-check that.
yeah, I think it,
I just did the math, it works out.
does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So correct me if I'm wrong.
Does it include the 175?
Correct
Yes.
me if I'm wrong.
yes,
Yep.
That if we add back the 346,620, we will now be at the mandated appropriation of 19,065,194,
yep,
but we will now be in the position of needing to find at least 175,000 plus 32,000 in revenue.
correct. Either 32,000 or 32,500,
Whichever is the correct amount.
yeah.
So we now will have to come up with some magic money
Yep,
of, so,
Wait,
At this
explain that, though.
point-
Where are you going to come up with revenue?
well, that is a bridge we'll cross next. Let
well,
me-
see, I would
so-
disagree with that, because
Well,
if
okay.
we need to find the 32,500 or 32,000 to offset, then I would like to put the debt service back in. I would not like to say that
You could do that,
we are going to expect a reduction in the debt service, because
We
I
can do
don't
that.
I don't see a plausible way to increase revenue by 32,500.
well, if we,
You know, and the fact of the
Then-
matter is,
then
by
we can do
increasing some of the fees, they will reach 32, but.
They will?
oh, yeah.
I suspect so.
But this simple,
But,
I
but we
like your
can't,
solution.
it's hard for us to add to a line item because we don't know exactly where that revenue will come from. So
So I
it's not a
like,
bad idea, is to
yeah,
exit out.
I like your idea of exiting
Simplify
out.
it.
Yeah. Because there's no 100% guarantee that that refi is going to get done with the current interest rates within the time frame.
Yeah.
So we made several adjustments in there.
All right, so then I will make a motion
Okay,
to reconsider reducing Fort Barton school bond by $93,500.
and I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion?
Can you repeat the motion?
It's to reconsider our vote on Thursday night to reduce the Fort Barton total payment debt service line item by $93,500.
Okay.
And just so I understand this motion, the effect of it is that we are looking for ways to increase cuts so that we can keep the money from the general fund in the general fund. Is that what's going on now?
This motion is to reconsider. That's it.
That's all.
Yes. This
Okay.
motion is to reconsider that specific cut.
And I second it, and Josh can't vote because he wasn't here. So how many people are in favor of reconsidering the cuts we made on the Fort Barton bond expense? Seven, yeah, opposed, one,
I abstain.
and one abstention. Okay.
So explain, so now, I mean, it's going to get out of order, but I need to know the fee discussion that the council had, and is if 32,000 is really plausible.
Well, we just took care of the 32,000 by putting that 93,000 back in.
No, we haven't voted on restoring, we're just
Well, that's-
reconsidering the motion that,
But we will. Well, I'm expecting the next logical motion to
Increase
Put
it to
the-
32.5, or leave it.
put
Leave it.
the 93 back in and subtract the 32.5 loss of building aid.
Don't we just leave it as is?
I think we just leave it as is.
I
I think we
so.
leave it as is,
Yes,
I think we
Yeah.
leave it as is because we didn't vote on the revenue.
right.
yep. But we voted to reconsider, but so now I think we have to vote to make sure.
To make it 711,260, to make it 804,769.
Right. And I'll take that as a motion. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
So I can vote on.
Yes, we can. Yep. So opposed? Abstention? One opposed. Okay,
All right, so that now is zeroed out,
okay.
which now makes the total reductions 1,036,015.
How much, what do you have, Laura?
Can I just take that, what was it, 93, whatever, away from the 346, 620? Can I go at it that way?
You can take 93, yeah, well, I can't do it that, I have my sheet set up so I can do it this way.
Okay, that's fine.
So that the total reductions is now 1 million, with that add back of 93, it's now 1,036,015, which makes the new municipal appropriation number 18,812,074,
Yeah, the 139.
with a remainder of 253,120 to increase it. We need to increase what we have now by 253,120.
Okay. Does anybody have any
The math.
suggestions about where we should add back? Don't
Hold
be
on.
shy.
I just, 6, 5, 8, 2,
And I don't know how we're going to get
128,
exact.
128, 120.
How are we going to get it exact? We're never going to get it exact.
Yes, we will.
We'll need a plug figure at some point.
Yes.
That's right. We'll plug
We'll give contingency
Plug the-
fund $2.
Sure figure.
or that, or
Same as
plug it into
we,
pension or
as,
something.
Laura's.
Okay.
Laura, how much, once again, how much did you have? Because I'm not certain
I have the revised appropriation now at $18,812,074.
Yeah, I did, okay. And leaving 1,036,015 as minus 907,895?
$1,036,015
Yep,
is the reduction amount that we have.
yes.
Which means we have $253,120
To go.
to go.
More to add back.
To add
That's
back.
what I got.
So,
So, capital,
Okay, the,
police,
hold on.
Okay.
Just let me just make sure. The 1,036,015 minus, what's your minus? 907?
I'm not understanding you.
I thought it was 93500.
935?
00.
What's that number?
That's what you just put
Okay,
in.
I mean,
You're subtracting it twice, I think.
No, they're just redoing the math, I think.
I know, but it's
I gave
Please
up
not
on the
be
math.
taking your bottom line and taking it out again. She's not tracking with you on your first deduction of the 93.
I come back to, we have 253,120, too much. But I do it,
that the total reductions are 1,036,015.
Right.
Yep.
You take that away from the Budget Committee's recommended amount of 19,848,089, and you arrive at 18,812,074.
which now, if you subtract that 18 from the voted amount, what do you get?
253,120.
Right. So that's the number. That's the number.
Okay.
Are we all set?
Yes, we are all set. And I will, since everybody is being very shy and reluctant, I'll jump in and say I would like to add back the 65,000 for the DPW capital expenditure for a catch basin cleaner, because when we did that one, that had a good return on investment.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
65, so that would leave,
Okay, well,
Almost
let's,
200.
let's vote first. All in favor of restoring the capital expenditure for the DPW catch basin cleaner? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed, 9. 8 yes. Okay, so that's 65.
so that's passed?
Yes.
All right, so now we are
253, 120 minus 65.
to a revised appropriation of 18,877,074, leaving 188,120 to raise, to add back,
How much,
to
where are we now on the?
188,120.
Yep.
Yep.
I'd like to add some money back to the police pension. I make a motion to add some money back to the police pension.
You're breaking up a little bit, Ms. Odell.
I guess we'll have to go back to the 100,000.
Which line?
You know, if you would
Police
add
pension.
back 50, I would vote for you, because I see some other needs.
I would, yeah, I mean,
Still have
there's
pavements,
188, 120 left. I would consider adding back for the retarees and then whatever's left over for the,
Excuse me.
I know.
We're bullying poor Miss Odell.
well, I think there's a lot of options.
Unimaginable as that act is, because she can take care of herself very well, thank you very much. So,
I'll revise that to say 50,000, I mean, but I'd like to put some money back in it.
okay, in the what? Police
In the
pension?
police pension.
Okay.
To the police pension.
She wants to add $50,000 back to the police pension. Which
I
now
would
the-
like to add back.
Oh, don't. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Now we're down to 138, 120.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we add 50,000 back into paving.
How much do we need for the retirees?
Puts us, yeah, I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
Just because I would like to use the money elsewhere, I'm going to say no.
Okay, that's a vote, not a discussion. All in favor of the motion to add 50,000 back to paving? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 2. So
All
that
right.
brings us down to 120,000, excuse me, down to $88,120.
Let me,
I'd like,
can I just hold, let me just find that line item, please, so I can make sure that this is up to date. I have to go down to DPW. Hold on. Harbor, library, DPW, operating, storm, paving. All right, so we just put 50,000 back, correct?
Yes.
So that line item is now 195. Correct?
Yes. 145 plus 50, better make 195.
Right. And there is now 88,120 left.
Correct?
I'd like to make a motion that the part-time building inspector be added. I could make a very impassioned argument for that, but I really do think we've at the point in this town where, one, we need to support a very able building inspector, and two, and just in talking to people who deal with that office, they have said it really should be that position. It's a part-time position, and
No benefits.
no benefits.
No benefits.
So that's my motion.
Any second to that motion? Okay. Any discussion?
I just would remind you that licenses, permits, fees, everything's down.
Yep.
Well,
Which may be a factor that we can't move stuff through the office fast enough. I think
don't think so.
a important point is that it's a part-time, no fringe benefits, and worst comes to worst, we can always eliminate it.
yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adding the building inspector back, part-time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed? 1.
All right, so that's line item, salary, part-time building inspector, 18,720, account 51, well, it's a bad account, yes, 106,05, 102. But there's more to it than that.
Wait a minute.
All right, so now we're down to or up or down, however you want to look at it. 852, 295,
Okay, so we added 18,720 back.
right, so 69,400. $69,400. Then I'm going to make a motion to restore the, replace the heating system at Fire Station 1 for $20,000.
I'll second that. Control the pot.
Any discussion?
How much is it for?
20,000?
20,000. Any discussion? Okay, and I want to make sure we're down now to, if, before this vote, we're at 69,400.
The only discussion, I'll just remind everyone that when we made these adjustments last week, we felt that the budget couldn't afford this kind of stuff.
Yep. We did.
We did.
Okay,
500,000 into the budget.
so all in favor of adding 20,000 back for the heating system in Fire Station number 1? 1, 2, 3, opposed? 1.
I'd like to add, or make a motion that we add 15,000 to the library.
What are we left?
Where are you? Hold on 1 second. 49,
15,000.
the total, the total reduction is now 832,295, and the amount to restore back is 49,400. See, this is why I wanted to
Wait a
restore
minute.
those Medicaid cuts. I mean, this is just,
49,400.
120, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, I'm going to make a motion to restore,
Whoa,
you have a
whoa, whoa,
motion.
Hold on.
Let me just check.
I think there's already a motion, isn't it?
69,400 minus another 20,000.
I know what I want to do.
Did you make a motion for that library thing, Louise?
Not yet.
Yes.
I mean, sort of.
I did, but I don't know if anybody heard it.
Yeah, and it
Okay,
doesn't have a
so
second yet,
before
so
we
she needs
move
to do it
further,
again.
I just want to confirm that we're to 49,400 is our balance.
Are we using different methods to arrive at that number?
We are.
Good,
We're using 4 different people, so it must be 4 different methods.
good.
So, I heard a motion to do something.
To increase the library budget by $10,000.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion.
I'd like to remind Louise that whatever we give them this year, we have to give them the same year after year after year. And next year, with the going for the school bond, I don't think, I mean, between the bond for the library and what we give them already, I don't think we should give them any more, I really don't.
I'd also like to remind that they are getting state aid that we did not know about at the time, I think 15,700 or something, that we did not know when we took that 16.
Well, one of the things I did hear today is they were going to have to close on Saturday. I'd like to see $10,000 is a modest amount in the overall scheme of things.
Let them close Union. Well, really, I mean.
Yeah, I understand.
Been there, done this. I
I'm
think
going to.
I've heard this before.
Whose decision is that?
It's theirs.
There's,
Categorically?
absolutely.
No,
No.
no.
You don't have any say in it, and
We don't
they
have any say
spend,
in
you
it.
know,
Zero.
whatever it is. that-
I won't give them any money if they're going to close on Saturday.
Yeah.
I won't even think about doing anything for them if they think of closing on Saturday. That is so
Well,
unacceptable
I
that I
agree.
can't even
Hold on, I'm not
imagine
even-
that they would do that.
John, don't get carried away here. What I did say was, basically, that's what I heard because of certain cuts. So I really think they do a terrific job in this town. And
You go in there half the time, it's empty, Louise. Try going by there every day for a week and see how many people are in
Well, I
there.
don't go by there every day, but I do know what their figures are, and I think that's a very modest amount. You know,
Yeah, but then we have to give it year after year after year, that's my thing.
for
If it was
$10,000.
just for this year, it'd be one thing, but.
Wait, so,
The kids have a good time up there.
Yeah, they do.
540,000 was what was
100.
540,100.
Okay,
Now,
but no,
I'm
no,
going
no,
to-
no, you're missing my point.
556,
540,000 was what was approved at last year's FTR, correct?
Yes.
All right.
And we
So-
voted this year to make that 540,100.
I think
So
it was
if I add
five-
10,000,
wasn't it 565 was Mr. Bento's motion to reduce it?
right,
No,
but if
but
I
we
add
went
10,000 to
past-
540.
We went past Mr. Bento's. When everything was said and done, it came down, if you look to the CATS version 2,
I just want to show a difference, that's all. I just want a percentage change.
it's 540,100 is where it stands right now.
Yep.
We reduced it by 16,400. Ms. Epke,
All right, so if we add 10,000, if we restore 10,000, that would make a total of 550,100,
yep,
which would make an increase over last year's budget of 1.87%.
okay.
So less than 2% increase.
Now, I have a question for Ms. Durfee. Would she consider adding back, let's see, we've got 49,400 left. Would she consider adding, before the library, adding back the 13,000 for the senior center south side, siding?
I certainly would.
Okay,
Now,
so,
I could combine the motion, 13,000 for the senior center and 10,000 for
that's
the
not fair.
library.
Well done, Louise, well
Pass on
done.
the senior center, sorry, Janice. You're not baiting me on that one. I'm standing for you.
Madeline and I was counting on your vote, too.
All we got in common tonight is our color.
that wasn't exactly where I thought I was going to get to, but I'll take what I can get.
Okay,
So
so
that
the
would-
motion is to add 10,000,
the
restore
library.
10,000.
To the library and 13,000.
to the
No, no,
senior
no.
center.
Yes,
Oh,
that's what
yes?
she
Yes.
just said.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It's a double motion.
13,000 to senior citizen center to replace south siding and door.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Let
What
me
is
just
the
get up to
10,000 for the library? Any,
that-
any particular,
No, I mean, I.
Operating.
Just put their.
Can you do that? Can you put two items together in two different lines like that?
Unfortunately, she can't.
yes.
That doesn't mean we have to vote
And
for
then you have
it.
to vote for it.
That's right.
That's- But I
Okay, any
thought
further
there was something
discussion?
specific for the 10,000. I could be tempted, but I,
It's operating.
Operating.
Operating, yeah.
They,
It's like the,
they showed us their operating budget. The actuals, they're gonna have a tight, they were gonna have a tight squeeze with the actuals making a budget of 600,000 from last year.
so it's
Now,
Okay.
it's,
everybody
you know,
else in town,
Yes.
so.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to restore 10,000 to the library, 13,000 to senior citizen center capital for south siding?
replace south siding and door.
Yes. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, motion carries.
All right, hold on, let me just get this in here. Because now I'm
So
up.
that's 10 plus
23,
13, so that's 23.
so we're down to 26.4?
I would,
26,400.
100.
I would almost, I would,
Down to 26.
I make a motion, we give a raise to the budget committee.
From,
I second that.
is that about 5 times what we're making now? So 5 times 0 is still 0?
It's still zero.
we could put it in contingency, or we could put it back in the police pension, or we could do something else with it.
You know, that's not a bad idea to put it, some of it in the town council contingency.
Contingency fund.
Because I do think, as this budget unfolds, there could very well be
Yes.
increased legal expenses encountered. And I think that's a good idea, Laura.
I'll move that.
Can you hold on 1 second until I get the library number in here, John, please?
We do that, or do we put it in litigation?
Or litigation. Yeah,
But it can always go from contingency to litigation.
Yes.
so
they can move it, that's
They can
true.
move it, give us that discretion.
All right, so the final library number is 550,100, correct?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes?
no. It's just this.
The
Computer issues.
The computer took a hissy fit, but the number is 26,400. And who made the contingency?
I'll move that it be put in the contingency.
26,400.
400.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to understand, we're enlarging the contingency fund?
Correct.
Is that what we're
Yes.
doing?
Yes.
Correct.
Because we didn't vote on it last week at all.
That's right. We're just, given all the other,
In the uncertainties,
particularly since we're fiddling with the trash contract, and I remember Mr. DeSisto cautioning there may be legal ramifications to that.
as well as the retirees, there may be legal
Yes.
ramifications to that as well.
And by putting it in contingency, that gives the council a little bit more flexibility. Any other discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 opposed? Alex, where were you?
He was in favor.
In favor, okay. 1 no.
All right, so we just put 26,400 into contingency.
Okay.
Now, let me just do that and see if it comes out to be the magic, pardon me, number. Where's contingency? Town council contingency. Plus 26,400. So that is now 76,400.
What?
Yes. We are now at the mandated 19,065,194, not a penny more, not a penny less.
Check
Very
check
good.
your addition.
He's just being skeptical. Okay, so that's good. Now, in all that, I think we took care of the 175.
No.
Well, we did in the expenses.
Yeah.
Well, no.
No?
No. If we keep the 25,000 abatements that, if we don't reconsider that, right? We now have total expenses of 48,713,418, 48713, 418.
Huh?
If you reduce that total expenditure amount, which includes abatements of 25,000, if you reduce that by the total dollars received from fees, state reimbursements, etc., you come up with a number that is, that number is 10,324,645, okay?
No.
Add in the 1,596,000, which is motor vehicle levy, and you now have a total revenue number of 11,920,645.
And what was the vote?
So if we take the total expenses revised of 48,713,418 and reduce those expenses by 11,920,645, we arrive at a number that is 36,792,773, which my guess is that it is 175,000 over the maximum real and tangible property levy that it is 182,000. Ay, gavalt.
How? You rattled off an awful lot of numbers there.
Okay, let's do
Laura, that
it
I
this
think have
way.
everybody confused.
All right, the municipal
I thought you
appropriation,
just said, I thought we had 19 million.
Right.
Whatever we needed in expenditures.
Right, the 19,065,194,
Right.
plus the school total of
Wait,
29,
why don't you stick with ours? Just stick with the...
because we have to get to the bottom line to the levy, John. We have to deal with the 175.
I understand that, but since the school one doesn't change at all,
Well, it's just because it's a total number I'm dealing with.
okay, but if we,
We can't adjust it.
well, let me just ask simply. If the number we had to get to was 19 million, whatever, and you said we did, what doesn't match now?
What doesn't match now is
The tax levy.
the tax, the 175,000 from withdrawal from the general fund. The tax levy doesn't match. Is 182,000 minus 175.25? I can't
But
even figure that.
182 minus 175 is 7.
The 182 went away because we put the bond refi back. So I think we come back.
No.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, what,
Of course.
No,
I'm looking at the number.
yes.
Maybe.
All right, so fees reimbursements are 10,356, 645. Is that what's in the Hank, Budget Committee recommendation report?
I think it is.
Supposed to add up to that number.
Where the hell is my?
10,356, 645. Okay, there's the error. All right, yes, now, okay, so that makes sense. All right, so now we have, if you apply the same motor vehicles and 25,000 for abatements, we are now over the real intangible levy by $150,000, which makes sense because we reduced abatements by 25.
So what does that mean now?
It means that we have to find $150,000 worth, am I right?
No, I'm just.
No, I don't think you are right.
Okay,
No, you lost me.
The abatements,
it's an expense.
yeah, but we didn't really,
We voted to change the abatements from 50 to 25.
Right. Let me ask the question now.
but we added back in and we adjusted the expense.
So now the levy,
If you just do it, I mean, let's use what we have here. And let's use what we have here in what we made for the people.
We're using what you have there.
I have the real.
Because
me-
the total proposed budget for the town of 49,471,313,
okay, let me, now, our target for the tax levy, I want to make sure that I'm looking at the right number, not to exceed 38,206,773.
I'm sorry, say it again?
The tax,
Excuse
property
me.
tax, levy of property tax not to exceed 38,208, 206,773.
That's the total levy.
That's the total levy.
Right,
Okay.
if you take out the motor vehicle levy, the real intangible levy on that ballot should be 36,610,773.
Yes,
Right, but we work with the total levy, right?
Yes,
yes.
I have the total levy.
I have. not
That's the
total.
voted levy, but when they do the calculation and the tax assessor and we do the warrant,
Right.
it always comes out slightly, it's always less, because it
Yeah.
can't exceed.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
30
38 million. Do you care?
The 38
Oh, you
million.
have the exact
I have
levy.
the exact
No, we
levy.
don't care. We
No.
need to match what's on the ballot.
Well, what the ballot says is not to exceed
Right.
38,206,773.
So if it's
And it
less-
doesn't exceed that.
So if it's less, it's fine.
Yes. But
If
we're
it's
over.
less, it's fine, then we're short.
And we're not.
If it's less, if the levy is less by that much, then we are not raising 150,000 worth of revenue. We're going to be short. Someone won't be able to use the expenses that we gave them.
Right.
They won't be able to spend the 150,000 that we just added back because those monies will not be collected in taxes.
Okay.
We don't know that,
Well, in theory,
in theory, that's right.
logical,
Yes.
just by the numbers, that's
Yeah.
what that says.
But now, I would, probably not a good question to ask, but didn't we just send the tax bills out based on a,
The tax bills are sent out based on the levy that comes out of the assessor's office.
Yeah.
And there's always a slight difference for
Right.
rounding and et
Yeah.
cetera.
So he just, say.
so he
hold- let me
he
just-
used the 38 million, he'd use less than the 38.
Yeah, because it's a calculated figure.
Yeah,
Hold
So-
on one second, Denise, because I want to add back in, if I add back in the motor vehicles, who has a ballot? The total
do,
levy on the ballot
right
is
here.
38,206,773?
Right.
Correct. Editing.
And what is the actual levy then that,
38, 190, 533. Every year we have a difference.
Every year,
yeah.
What is the actual?
Last year was up, this year it's.
it's down.
so
the actual?
that's 16,000?
38, 190, 533.
All right, so 16,000.
So if we collected all 100%, that's what we'd collect.
Yeah,
And we'll never collect all 100,000.
correct.
So. I
So
think,
what were your thoughts on increasing revenue, Cecil?
None.
I thought
We're-
the mention was that the council had
Yep, but,
fees being raised.
and that they do. But if we're under the levy number,
We're over the levy number. Oh, no, you're right,
No,
we're under the
we're
levy
under.
number.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
so as far as I know, we're okay, as long as we're
Yeah, I agree.
not to exceed.
That's what I
And then
thought.
if does the council have an option to withdraw from the general fund? We don't
No.
have to do it.
No. Only in case of an emergency can they vote to withdraw money from the unreserved general fund reserve.
So we'll
It was
just
not
leave.
part of our revenue. We
I
did
thought-
not identify as a revenue item,
No.
any kind of.
Okay, so we just leave them 150,000
Cecil,
short.
isn't the emergency
Yeah.
only for, to go
And let
below
them
the
figure out where to
3%?
take it.
Exactly, and they may get it
Yeah.
from fees
But,
on,
but that's the only way they can get to that, is there's got to be an emergency, because they just
No,
can't
not if
wait
there's
around.
excess.
No.
So I think I get this now, okay.
But,
Okay.
but the net is, we're done.
oh my God.
That is a miracle.
Congratulations, Madeline.
Well,
So now it's back to the council to,
No.
may I just ask that I voted against all of this, and I really would like the minutes to reflect I did it, because we are doing this by basically asking the taxpayers to pay $353,120 more in order to save the general fund, and I think that's wrong.
I would like to just, I'm going to make this point. I have one last minute left on the Budget Committee, and I would like to make this point because it has bothered me for years. If you pull out money, if you pull out $320,000 from the general fund, as we did last year, you have to find $320,000 to make up that revenue source. It's a one-time gift of $320,000. If you don't have that $320,000 to pull out to make that revenue the same at a level starting place, you will have to raise taxes to increase that revenue by $320,000 or offset your expenses by $320,000. So you can reduce your expenses by $320,000. So the choice that I choose to make and believe in is not to withdraw $175,000 from the general fund, because that will put next year's Budget Committee and budget season in the position of choosing to cut $175,000 from a budget or magically find $175,000 in surplus money from the general fund, which may or may not be there. So
Hasn't
that-
been there in the last 2 years.
That is my opinion.
You know.
And that is your opinion, and other people don't share it and feel that the taxpayers are saying, we do want you to cut from the expenses and give us
Nancy?
back our taxpayer
I
money.
will
Nancy,
conclude by
let me
saying...
also just supplement what Laura said, because it hasn't been 1 year, it's been 600,000 was the prior year. There's not a responsible financial advisor in this state, wait a minute, let me finish, who says the town must increase its reserves, period. Not who takes the position that should not happen. It has to happen if we are going to, in any way, be a financially responsible and secure community.
It's my understanding that the Moody's ratings that we have gotten have not been affected by the general fund monies that we have taken out.
That is absolutely incorrect, and you know it as well as I know.
I do not know it.
Okay, in an abundance of caution, I would like a motion to approve the total municipal budget,
I will make a motion,
capital, the that we have a municipal operating and capital expenditure budget of $19,065,194, which is what was on the ballot.
I will so move.
Second.
Okay, and any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay,
how are we going to
Thank
get
you.
this information to the proper authorities?
we'll just transmit it to Mrs. Surratt. No problem.
Transmit what?
The budget.
What we voted on.
Oh, the changes that we voted on, okay.
Now, we still have the minutes to deal with. Speaking only, the minutes from the last meeting, speaking only for myself, I haven't even had a chance to look at them. So I
I
would
started.
abstain from any vote. Anybody else want to make a motion about minutes, or should we just leave them taken but unapproved?
I would suggest taken but unapproved, because we revisited a lot of these. And that's
Yeah.
not entirely true.
I think a motion to just not, to continue the minutes approval.
Is there a second for that motion?
When is it continued to?
Infinite.
Christmas Day.
Yeah. It goes in the record as recorded but unapproved.
Can I make any change, suggestion, or
Well,
Before it goes in the record?
My sense is that,
it's just one little thing that I would, at this point?
yeah,
It says Nancy Driggs arrives late. I would like it to say less than 5 minutes late.
okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
God almighty.
Okay.
Do we need to if we're not approving the minutes, do we need to approve a version of this summary sheet that you did from last meeting?
I wouldn't want to approve that summary sheet because that summary sheet is now incorrect. My intention is to go through and update that to reflect what we did tonight, but this is now incorrect. We've
I
changed
understand
it.
that this is incorrect. I'm saying a revised version of this. I'm just uncomfortable saying that we are responsible for doing the line items.
Well, you know,
We
it's
made
not,
the cuts,
it's
but
not
we haven't
uncommon
approved
if we
it.
had to meet sometime in
I'm
the
just
summer
gonna
for 20 minutes to approve minutes.
Okay, fine.
Even in the next week or so.
Yeah. why not?
Okay, fine.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second that motion.
All in favor? No?
No.
No.